Disinfectants have played an important role in human history to stop the spread of disease. The first recorded mention of a chemical disinfectant was in Homer's The Odyssey in 800 BC. In the book, a hero demands that the house of his dead rivals be burned in sulfur. Since that time, research and development has found much more complex and effective disinfectants and transformed the business into a billion-dollar industry. So what are disinfectants? Disinfectants work to kill bacteria and prevent the spread of disease. Unlike antiseptics, disinfectants work outside of the body, usually on surfaces and in the air. The two major categories of disinfectants are oxidizing and non-oxidizing. One oxidizing disinfectant we will discuss is hydrogen peroxide. Two non-oxidizing disinfectants that we'll discuss are alcohols and aldehydes. Now that we know that disinfectants kill bacteria, we need to know, what are bacteria? Bacteria are single-celled microorganisms that were among the first forms of life on Earth. Bacteria make up one of the two domains of prokaryotes. Bacteria are so abundant that it is estimated that there are 10 times as many bacteria in your body as there are human cells. Bacteria are also quite diverse. Some bacteria is necessary for your daily survival to help digest food and prevent infection. But other harmful bacteria may cause food poisoning, ulcers, sexually transmitted diseases, and sicknesses such as pneumonia, meningitis, and strep throat.
First, let's look at alcohols as disinfectants. What makes alcohols such effective disinfectants is their ability to get inside the cell membrane of bacteria. This allows for alcohols to disrupt both ion flow and water flow due to hydrogen bonding while within the cell membrane. Likewise, alcohols can increase the solubility of lipids within the lipid bilayer, further disrupting the activity of the cellular membrane. Furthermore, alcohols are able to denature proteins within cells. This can be done through interactions with sulfur-hydrogen bonds, as well as hydrophobic and hydrophilic interactions within the protein. Ultimately, both allow for the denaturization of proteins, and thus the decrease in those protein functions. It should also be mentioned that alcohols are effective against both bacteria and viruses which contain lipids. Now, let's look at some alcohols that are used as disinfectants. The most common is ethanol. Ethanol is the most common alcohol disinfectant due to its non-toxic nature as well as its small size, thus leading to more easy permeability within cell membranes. Another popular alcohol as a disinfectant is isopropanol. While this alcohol is toxic in large quantities, it is still widely used as a hand sanitizer as well as a solvent in many products. Likewise, it is commonly mixed with ethanol in many disinfectant solutions. Also worth mentioning is methanol. Although it itself is not used as a disinfectant due to its poisonous nature, it is used to denature other alcohols within disinfectants. Thus, overall, a typical alcohol concentration is 60% to 90%. Less than 60% and over 90% is generally considered ineffective, and thus that's the concentration range most disinfectants aim for. As a disinfectant, alcohols have some everyday life usage. For example, alcohols are used commonly in skin disinfectants. This is convenient mostly due to their non-toxic nature when on the skin. They can be found in such products as Purell and Germ-X. Alcohols are also used as medical disinfectants. Now, they're not usually used for instrumental sterilization due to the fact that alcohols do not kill spore-based bacteria. However, for surgical disinfectant, they do the trick. This is mostly due to the fact that alcohols evaporate quickly and kill most bacteria when involved in surgery.
Okay, up next we have the disinfecting agent formaldehyde. And as you can tell from the name, it contains the functional group of an aldehyde, which is a carbonyl with a hydrogen on one side of the carbon. And in this case, it just has another hydrogen as the other substituent. And formaldehyde naturally occurs as a gas at standard temperature and pressure, but it's used as a liquid as a disinfecting agent, and this is done by dissolving it into a water and methanol mixture until the desired concentration of formaldehyde is reached. and it's produced on an industrial scale by the oxidation of methanol in the reaction shown below, and iron is used as a catalyst in this reaction. So now we'll look at the chemistry of how formaldehyde actually disinfects, and the main way that it does this is by dehydrating bacteria cells. So inside of the cell is a cytoplasm which contains water, and the formaldehyde will dehydrate and remove that water, killing all of the organelles inside the cell, just leaving like a rigid structure of the cell. And the reaction with water is just an SN2 addition, where water is a nucleophile, and this attacks the polarized carbonyl bond on the formaldehyde, and this leads to methylene glycol. So formaldehyde is able to kill bacteria, fungus, and mold, so it's got a lot of applications in the real world. And some of the medical applications are treating skin infections, urinary tract infections, and also removes bacteria from vaccines before they're used. And it's also commonly used as a preservative to preserve flesh for study in anatomy labs, or it's used as an embalming agent, and this is to prevent bacteria from growing in the flesh and causing it to decay. Formaldehyde is a carcinogen, causing like nasal cancer, so you need to be careful to limit your exposure to it if you're going to be using it as a disinfecting agent.
So what is a peroxide? A peroxide is any compound with an oxygen-to-oxygen single bond. Hydrogen peroxide, as shown here, is simply when the R groups connected to the oxygens are hydrogens. The oxygen-to-oxygen single bond is very, very weak, and this is namely due to the high electronegativity of oxygen. So on its own, peroxides will form free radicals, and free radicals, as we know, are very, very reactive. These free radicals in turn become very strong oxidizing agents, and these very strong oxidizing agent radicals can attack and denature biological cells. This includes bacteria, proteins, membrane lipids, DNA, viruses, all sorts of different types of cells. The human body actually produces its own peroxide on its own. And to avoid the peroxide radicals attacking our own cells, we have our own enzyme called catalase, which neutralizes the peroxide effect. So then the question becomes, how do we disinfect our own wounds if catalase will neutralize the effect? And by neutralize, I mean it will cause the peroxide to form water and oxygen. Well, the answer is to concentrate the peroxide solution when we disinfect something. That way, we overcome the function of catalase. One of the main functions we always see hydrogen peroxide being used is for the treatment for minor cuts and scratches to disinfect them. The oxidizing effect of the free radicals are really effective to denature or kill microbes. A common misconception is that the foaming that takes place whenever you put hydrogen peroxide in an open wound is due to the peroxide actively killing the bacteria or infection. But what's actually happening is, as we know, catalase causes the reaction to occur with water and oxygen. That's all that's happening. In the blood, catalase reacts with the peroxide and forms oxygen. So if you had no infection in your blood and you put peroxide on it, you would still get a foaming effect. That's not to say that the foaming effect does nothing. The foaming action actually acts as a cleaning agent because it brings embedded dirt up to the surface, and that comes with the oxygen being released. Hydrogen peroxide is an effective disinfectant to the fact that hospitals use it to sterilize their equipment. Johns Hopkins University started research to decontaminate isolation rooms using a robotic vapor dispensing device that dispenses hydrogen peroxide vapor. Some contact lens solution even includes a peroxide as a disinfecting agent, along with a catalase agent, some type of acid to neutralize the peroxide effect.
In conclusion, alcohols, formaldehydes, and peroxides serve as effective disinfectants in both the commercial and the medical world.